wouldn't allow it to happen. But there are other reasons why that might not have been a great idea. I mean, you all know that with the securitization that was created with mortgage loans, it's a whole different discussion. But when banks gave loans, they would sell those loans on the second mortgage market. And those second mortgage market loans would then be bundled up into securitized debt obligations. Forgive me for getting into this. And then Wall Street firms would sell them to municipalities, to institutions. And we know that was, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest scam in American history. Because they would often sell those securities for more than the underlying mortgages themselves. How do you do that? How do you sell a mortgage for more than it's worth, knowing that mortgages, by virtue of what they are, don't always pan out? How is it that, and this is not the judge who's speaking, how is it that with all that fraud and all that scam, no one's gone to jail? It's incredible. We focus on one person, Bernard Madoff, and he wasn't even doing this. He was doing it something different. So we won't get into that. We don't have time. All right, so that's what a loan modification is. Reduction of the interest rate, the stretching out the life of the loan. What's the criteria? Got your pen? 31%. 31% of your gross income is the criteria that the HAMP program is designed to utilize to figure out what your payments will be. And what they do is they adjust the interest rate, they switch out the life of the loan to achieve that amount. And that's how banks will approve a HAMP loan. There's also a thing called a CAMP. A CAMP is a non-HAMP. It's an internal bank loan modification. So it's not a federal program. It's a bank, Chase, whomever, who decides to give you a loan modification. What's the number one reason why a bank would give someone a loan modification? The answer is because it's better for them to do that than to lose money. You know why? Remember the example I gave you about the person who buys a $500,000 house and now it's worth $300,000? And that person bought that house with virtually 100% financing? That bank doesn't want that house. What are they going to do with it? Do you know that when a house goes into foreclosure, when a person stops paying their note, who pays the taxes? The bank does. People are shocked to hear that when they come into my office. The bank pays that. Banks don't want to pay you taxes. You don't want to pay your taxes. That's what I'm saying. In Clarkstown, you want to pay your taxes. That's very important. Step into the room. Okay. So what happens is that they'd rather give you a loan modification than get stuck with your house, because if your house has been borrowed, if you borrowed $500,000, now it's worth $300,000. They don't want the house. They're better off keeping the house on their balance sheets. Because don't forget, they're giving you a loan modification. They have not affected the actual underlying loan. So they show that loan on their balance sheets as being $500,000. But the servicing of that, the amount they're getting every month, is different. And that's what a loan modification is. And that's why banks might want to give you a loan modification. Not because they're nice, not because they care about you, because they're not on either of those. They want to do what's best for them. They want to protect their investors. They want to protect their balance sheet. The other thing that's been utilized, but not as much recently, is a thing called a forbearance agreement. Forbearance agreement is something that is not a loan modification. The loan stays in place. There's no change in the interest rate. There's no stretching out of the life of the loan. If a person, the example I used, $3,000 a month, falls behind for 6 months, owes $18,000. A forbearance agreement is where the person continues to pay their mortgage payments, and then the bank says, okay, the $18,000 arrears, we're going to let you pay that back to us over 12 months, 18 months, in addition to your mortgage payments. Well, that's not available anymore. If you could have paid your mortgage payment, you would have paid it. It doesn't make sense. That doesn't really happen. Like it happened years ago when the market was hot, but it doesn't happen now. So you go to Mr. Adelson's park, you go to the settlement conference, what do? You walk in, it has to be your primary residence, and you have to have some income, some job, but it could be anyone in your family. It could be yourself, your wife, if your kids live with you, if your cousin moves in, if you even rent some of the rooms to some people, and you're showing some rental income. Any of that money can be utilized for the purpose of determining that you have the money sufficient to pay your loan modification if you get one. They are very slow, these processes. Why? because the banks are so overwhelmed. They don't monitor the process efficiently, and they really don't have the time to address them quickly. So you'll have lawyers stepping into the bank who will ask you to fill out an RMA. It's a request for a modification application. You fill it out, you come back, you have to get the paperwork, you have to deal with the banks. If any of you in the real estate business, or any of you have even tried on your own to do a loan modification, you know, you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is you take Xanax. I don't take Xanax, but just work, you know, and that's good. Okay. Because it's impossible to deal with them. It is impossible. I have one girl in my office who works 45 hours a week, just deals with banks, just speaks to them, calls them, emails them, deals with them. It is so difficult. It's incredibly difficult, and that's the experience that most people have. I know I'm running out of time here, and I'm really sorry. Oh, here's another important thing. Another reason why the foreclosure industry has changed in the last few months is that with the cascading of foreclosures. Now, Rob talked about it on his screen, and I didn't see it, of course, so I didn't know what the girl back was complaining about. But because of the cascade of foreclosures, there's not as many foreclosures occurring anymore. And there's been a temporary lull, and the reason is because a thing called robo-signing. You hear about that expression, robo-signing, where lenders were having people sign documents saying, yes, they owe this money, this is how much they owe, and they were filing foreclosure documents where they didn't really know what they were signing. And often they were not signing. Often they were fraudulent signing. Often these people didn't exist. It was such a scam. Folks, if you take anything from what I said today after I leave, call up your Congress members and complain about why Washington has not severely punished the mortgage industry. They deserve a spanking like nobody's business. So in New York, what they did was they said, okay, we're not doing any more foreclosures until a lawyer representing the bank will file an affirmation, which is a sworn statement by a lawyer, saying that I've read through these papers and they're accurate. So right now, there's been very, very few foreclosures on the courthouse steps because there's been a lull. For example, I called the other day to track one of my foreclosure cases. I spoke to one of the Supreme Court judges in New York City. And I said, what's happening with People versus Smith, which is not And they said, well, we have 350 files in our chambers, and we're not moving any of them because the banks have not submitted their affirmations by their lawyers. And now we're sending letters saying, we don't have your affirmations in 60 days, and dismissing the case. So, as I conclude my comments, because I'm sure I've spoken way too long for my time, so sorry. I'm not used to public speaking. I want you to know that there are a lot of things that you can do. You should deal with the people that you love. You should never be fearful of the banks. You should be proactive. You should look to find ways to fight them. Fight these banks. Fight back, because a lot of them have done things that are so awful that they deserve to be challenged. Do any of you have cable television? Yeah. I say, I'm Scott Ugell of the Ugell Law Firm. I work with that families, consumers, and small businesses. That's exactly what I do. And I'm proud to help people, and I'm proud to help anybody in this room. If you have questions, call me. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions, help give you direction. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about helping you. So thank you for letting me speak with you today.
I have one question.
We can take questions.